You're listening to the Latin Selection on Premier Gospel. Joining me today is Evan Craft. Evan, thank you for being here. How are you doing?
Muy bien, muchas gracias.
So, could you just tell us a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, well, I grew up growing up in Southern California. 60% of the population is Latino, and my dad was a pastor, started working at a homeless shelter. Some of our guests were Spanish speaking, and so I was taking Spanish in high school and was able to use it with them and talking to them about where they came from and their experiences and just like really started to love the language and being able to talk to people from different parts of the world. Um, I studied in Spain in 2011, and that was kind of it. That was like I knew, wow, this is so fun. I love to travel. I love to meet people, new experiences. I came home to the States and my dad gave me a book by Reinhard Bonnke, a missionary from Germany who became an evangelist in Africa. And I thought, okay, well, I have no money. I can't make it to Africa. And I kind of speak Spanish, so why not try to go to Mexico? And I took my first trip to Mexico in 2011 and never looked back. It was a crazy God experience. The first night I was singing in a tent meeting, the revival meeting. It was like 60 people, mostly old women, like elderly women, and they were praying fervently for their city. And I fell in love with it. I mean, to see people that were praying for healing, there's lots of prostitution and drug trafficking and violence in Tijuana. And so it was just an amazing thing to see their faith. And I realized that I didn't have faith like that. So I stayed and I wanted to learn from the missionaries I had met. So it was a really, really cool experience. And so it evolved from just language to missions to really, learning to love the people and being received and treated so well. So it's been an incredible journey.
I mean, your story is just like one of my favorites. It really resonates with me because I'm also not Hispanic, and yet here I am with a Christian radio show that is all Spanish music. And I don't even. When did you first kind of feel that call to ministry? Because I know you grew up as a pastor's kid. Am I right in saying that? So yeah, what did that look like for you, and how did you identify that speaking Spanish was maybe part of that calling for you?
Well, so I mean, I didn't grow up with like Spanish in the household or even an emphasis on Spanish at all. Um, my dad gave me a guitar when I was 12, and my mom was a music teacher. So music was just something I really enjoyed. My brother and sister didn't pick it up, but I started writing songs and leading worship in the youth group and things, and I really enjoyed that, and I felt that something I was pretty decent at. I think I got kind of a big head in high school, and my dad was quick to to help regulate that. But it was really going to Mexico for the first time where I had tried to create a music career in English. I signed a record deal when I was like 20, 21. It was just kind of a disaster, and it was in the middle of this process that God takes me to Mexico. And so I think I still had the record deal while I went to Mexico, and I was just like, this is, like I don't that's not working. There's nothing coming out of it. I'm fighting an uphill battle, but if God's opening up doors here, then I'll go here. And so I remember thinking, if God, if you are leading me towards this, then this is your like it's your success or your failure. And if you don't fail, then I know you'll succeed. And so that was like this logical part of me being like, this doesn't make any sense for me to go to Latin America. I barely speak Spanish. I know how to sing like three songs right now. And people would laugh. I mean, it was just like I would make mistakes. They asked me to preach one time, and I was like, I only sing. I only know these songs.
Mm.
And it was really just seeing like, okay, God, here's everything I have. Like if you are leading me here, then I'm in. And so, I've just seen God's faithfulness in it. Because I mean, years later, my dad was in Mexico with me at one of this event. It was like 5,000 youth in Mazatlan, Mexico, which was the city I actually ended up meeting my wife in two
Wow.
years later. And he was crying And the last concert he had been to was like 9 people. It was just nobody was there. And in Los Angeles. And so there's 5,000 people and he's crying. I'm like, what's going on? He's like, man, I really didn't believe God was calling you to this.
Wow.
And I was like, but you never said anything. You always encouraged me. He's like, I didn't want to be the one to put out whatever God was doing. And so to me, that was a huge lesson. I mean, I just announced this week, it's not a secret anymore, that my wife's pregnant. We're super excited to have kids. And like, I want to be that way in not just to my children, but to other people. When God is speaking something that I don't understand, I want to be somebody who is open to maybe God is doing something beyond my own understanding.
That's like Ephesians 3:20. I just say like God is like Ephesians 3:20 with like exceedingly abundantly with the Spanish stuff. From all of these experiences that you had, like traveling for 8 years, I think it was across Latin America, you came here to Europe, to Spain. You studied Spanish as well. So you actually
I'll be in Romania soon and Italy.
Really?
Yeah.
I love that. I know Christine was just here as well. She was just in Italy, wasn't she? I think.
I have friends in Harrow on the Hill.
Harrow on the Hill. Is that? I
Yeah.
think that's like North London, maybe.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. I mean, if you guys are ever here, you have to let Premier Gospel know, and like you have to like come to
Yeah.
the studio or do something. We'd love that.
Of course.
Just with all of these experiences that you had and traveling, I want to say it was like maybe a season of preparation because like you said, even maybe there were times where you didn't understand it, other people didn't understand it, but you knew that God was leading you and was opening the doors. So how did that season of preparation like equip you for what you're doing now?
Oh, that's a great question. I mean, I understood this is like kind of an interesting thing, but I could sense that there was something so much bigger than like the little videos we were doing, right? So like, my producer's actually at my house. We're working on a new project right now, but we knew that like we had accidentally stepped into something that was so big that it was bigger than us. It wasn't like, wow, we're so smart, we're doing Spanish. It's like, oh my gosh, how are we like some of the first people in the US to realize, like from a gringo
Yeah.
perspective,
Mm,
that God is doing such incredible things in Latin America. And not that we're the first, but maybe just that it was new to us.
mhm.
And we didn't see a lot of people who valued or understood it. And so I felt a huge responsibility of like, if God is going to open these doors, I need to prepare myself. And so I have a degree in Spanish. That's what I studied in college. I switched from my major from music to business to Spanish,
Wow.
completed that. And I also ended up getting a master's degree in ministerial leadership. And I was doing seminary when I wrote Be All Right. I was doing seminary when I wrote my album Impulso. And so it really like broadened and deepened my theological understanding, of who God is and who Jesus is and what he's done for us. And so it helped me write better songs. And I think, those are the things that people think, okay, well, I can go in there and I can write a song because it's about feeling and emotion, but it's also like, I cannot interpret those feelings well if I don't have a theological framework.
Mm,
And so those were really important like moments and seasons of preparation for me, because I don't think that I would have the songs. I don't think I would be the husband I am today. I don't think I would be the son I am today, friend I am today, worship leader, whatever it was, without those seasons of preparation. That understanding, like a lot of people, I can say that because I did understand, okay, this is eventually going to happen. But a lot of people get very impatient and they go, okay, I'm in a season of preparation. I knew when I was leading worship in our youth group that this, like, enjoy this, but this is also just the start.
mm,
And so I would say, like, anybody listening to this, it's not that like God gave me this revelation of you're going to be in massive stadiums or in front of huge crowds or write amazing songs, but it's what I'm doing today significantly impacts what I will be doing tomorrow and in a year and in 10 years. It may look very small in the next week, 2 weeks, month, but I mean, right now I'm working on a new like project, and I understand that like what I write today, whether it be a line or an entire verse or a song, will impact me. This is what I will be singing in a year. This is the thing that might pay for my kids' diapers. It's
Yeah.
I think they say nappies over there, right?
Nappies, yeah. I was thinking more as well, like, or even the college tuition, because that's really expensive in America.
Hopefully it pays. That's what, yeah.
No, it's so true, because even what you were
I'm
saying,
really hoping if I have a son, I hope he plays in the Premier League. So,
really, what team do you support?
I was a huge Barcelona fan,
Okay,
but since Messi's not there, I could care less about
fair enough.
Barcelona. So, I mean, when I play FIFA, I play as Man United,
Okay.
but
Respectable, respectable. I'm not
yeah.
really into football, but I know that's a team that people appreciate. So I'm glad that I can enlighten the audience with that
Yeah,
information.
I mean, I'm not really a huge like I watch the World Cup, but
Yeah.
beyond that, I don't really follow. But if my son,
Okay,
if I
it's
have
a
a
season of
son,
preparation. The video
yes,
game is a season
I'm
of preparation.
short, and so I'm like, okay, wait, if Messi can do it, then why could my family not do it?
Exactly, exactly. You've got vision. You're a visionary.
Yeah.
Um, so when you were saying before about how the things that you do today can impact this week, next week, and the future. So even I think to myself about like when you released Be All Right and then Sam did the English Spanish version, put it
Totally.
on YouTube and like now connecting with him and then all of the things that he's done since then, your experience, it like builds on itself. It's a ripple effect, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think that's part of I'm in a season where like I've written some songs and like I have invested in other people. Like you following God's calling in your life is going to open up doors for other people and that is a good thing. I've also opened myself up to invest in them in songwriting and sometimes in production and which requires finances um and I think that you have to like I've had really good leaders in my life lead me with an open hand. Hey, let me help you with this. You owe me nothing. I'm in a season where this is the first time I'm in that position
Mhm.
where I've invested in Sam or I've invested in somebody else and allowing them to follow God in the timing that God has for their lives is very difficult for me because I am a type A go-getter personality where I want things now. And so, I think that's an important aspect of this, of like, there are these branches that you are blessing other people. And I can become even like quite controlling in that because, hey, well, I would do it this way. And, allowing people also, I think that's one of the things I take away from my dad saying, I didn't see what God was doing in your life, but I didn't want to be the one to stop it.
Mm,
And allowing someone else to step into their gifting, into their calling, while maybe you are their main beneficiary is a difficult thing. And so I would just encourage people that are listening, like, if when you are following your calling and you see other people being blessed by it, let them be blessed, no matter how hard it is.
mhm. That's so good. Another question, kind of going back to the experience you had with ministry and just like being in church and in Latin America. In that time, what did God teach you about his church and his people?
Yeah, I think one of the craziest things is that, like, and I say this as an American,
Okay,
we're not the center of the world.
right.
My church, and that's actually a kind of an interesting thing because sometimes I feel like, at least my experience is that almost every church that I've been to, it becomes so involved that it is the church. This is everything happening in the kingdom of God. And I don't know if it happens in the UK. I don't know if it happens in everywhere else, but I mean, I've seen it in Latin America where it's like, this is what God's doing, and if if you miss it, you're out. Where it's like, the truth is God is moving in South Africa. He's moving all over Africa. He's moving all over Europe, moving all over Asia. He's moving all over Latin America, the US, Australia, and anywhere else. And to be aware of that. And so I think when the kingdom of God or the church becomes, we got to like build instead of like the interpersonal relationships, because God, the Great Commission is to go and make disciples, not to go build organizations, not to fill buildings. It is to go and make disciples. And if any of those other things happen, that's great, but it's to make disciples. And so what I've seen a lot in Latin America and other places too is that there have been great examples of structure in the US and Australia, and then they tend to copy it. And it's okay to copy the good things, but there also are like, there are characteristics of the church in Latin America, or I would imagine Africa, or in Europe, or in the US, that you want to take the best thing, because God is expressing himself to the people in their language, in their culture, in ways that maybe in America. I mean, I went to Mexico the first time and couldn't believe the hunger I saw, because it didn't exist in my church.
Yeah.
I had never witnessed something like that. And so, I have a song called Mi Casa es Tu Casa, or no, Comfort Zone. Comfort Zone, and it's Nunca Más Atrás in Spanish.
Yeah.
And one of the lines is that I thought I was the blessing. I thought I was a blessing going to Latin America. My very first day. Look at me. I'm from Los Angeles, California. I'm a talented singer. I'm gifted. I'm going to go bless these people. And God turned it completely upside down. And so that's one of the things that where I understood Latin America is a blessing to me. I may be able to bless people in a way with songs and everything. And I'm extremely grateful that I would imagine people have told me that. But what God has done in my life through Latin America is like, I mean, it's 100% different. It's black and white. It's night and day. And so I think that what I've learned from the church is joy. Like that's a characteristic that marks Latin America. And family values, eating together. It's like, I go to a Spanish speaking church here in Houston, and we don't plan barbecues, but like 2 weeks ago, just 100 people went to the park and just had a barbecue, played soccer, and it felt like our 4th of July.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love everything that you said. I think you're kind of in the in between of this, like, I want to say like the Spanglish market. It's ever growing and it's very interesting to see. What role do you think you've played in kind of bridging the two cultures together in a sense?
I think that, I'm not an architect, so I don't know how they build bridges, but I would imagine you can meet in the middle. And so if there's not somebody advocating from the other side of like the gringo American side, Anglo-Saxon side, or whatever you want to call it, like, I feel like it can just feel one-sided. And so, it's a relationship. Like, I love my wife as much as she loves me. And so if I love Latin America and Latin America loves, my culture, like, it's an exchange. And so I think we sang Firm Foundation this weekend at my church in Spanish, and it's such a good song. It was hilarious because everyone's like, wow, man, I didn't know you wrote, like, I've never heard that song of yours before. And I'm like, I wish I wrote that song. But thank you, Cody Carnes. And I, that was an incredible gift to our Spanish speaking church. I think there are also gifts that we can give to the English speaking church, and where, theology is much more advanced, or developed in the English speaking world. And I think that, but there are, there's more seminaries, there's more opportunities. And so I think just by equipping people, I think people in Latin America are just as capable, and have the same potential as people in the UK or in the US, but giving them the opportunity. There's incredible worship artists in Colombia, Mexico, Argentina, Spain, all over the world. and giving them the platform and saying, hey, what God is saying in their life is worth listening to.
Mm.
And that's my part of my goal right now. And it's being a mouthpiece. I think like right now we're doing an album and it's half English, half Spanish. And it's extra work, it's extra effort. It's sometimes I'm like, this song is better in English or it's better in Spanish. And just trying to really like be in that in between where a lot of people live. I mean, I live in Texas. There's 33 million people. California has 40 million people, and 38% of both of our states speak Spanish.
Wow.
So how many of them are bilingual? I don't know, but a lot of them are. And so they're listening to music in this, and there's different words. Are you bilingual? You speak another language?
Hablo un poquito español.
Yeah. Well, but when you hear something in
Mhm.
your language, like words carry connotations, they carry history. And so sometimes when I hear something in Spanish, it'll hit me so much different than like, but also when I hear like very well-written songs in English, like my firm foundation, I get an image that it is unmovable, that like this may come and this may come, but it is not, like it is unshaken. And so I'm passionate about exploring those things to help other songwriters. I mean, the songwriting infrastructure in English for Christian music is very developed. There's pub deals. You go to Nashville, that is like, I know a lot of people from the UK that there's direct flights to Nashville from London because of music.
Yeah.
But in Latin America, you have 17 different countries that are all different laws, different rules for publishing, different, this, and this. And there's not a central location like there is in English. And so I'm trying to encourage, now we have technology. Now we're able to talk on Zoom. Now we're able to do these things and write together. So let's start developing that in Spanish.
That's so good. So just off the top of your head, who are some of the artists like up and coming in the Spanish world that you think people should be listening to, or that you just really love and are impacted by?
Yeah, I love, there's, I wouldn't say that they're up and coming, but Un
Yeah.
Corazón is incredible. I think Living is incredible. I think there's a lot of reggaeton artists right now that like I'm not as well versed as with them, but I really love like Alex Campos's music. And there's like I think there's a lot more like legados, or like people who have stayed in music a lot longer in Spanish. And so there's some incredible music coming out. But I haven't been in Latin America as much in the last 3 years. And so I feel like I'm not as versed in who are the new people, because I always knew this guy, this guy, this guy. Sam Rivera, obviously extremely talented and gifted, but that's one of the challenges I have now is, okay, staying up with who, I was in my 20s when I did all this. Now I'm in my 30s.
Staying
I'm
down with the
married,
youth.
having kids. I'm like, I need to hire some 22-year-old to tell me what the new music is.
The final thing that I want to just like wrap up on is, you mentioned it earlier, talking about family and just your faith. So congratulations again. What are some of the lessons that you've learned that you would like to just impart into your family life?
One of my favorite concepts in the Bible is in the Beatitudes, when blessed are the meek. Meekness does not mean weakness. That's my wife. I think it's incredibly important that we understand that strength is not bad. Strength is an incredible asset. It's an incredible gift. But knowing how to wield strength is incredibly important. And that is like, you can be successful and still be kind. You can grow a church and still care and be empathetic and be patient and take time. And so I think sometimes we want power, we want resources, money, we want big churches, we want you know, all these things, and we forget about what it is to like, what are the important things in our lives. And I'm actually writing a song for our child. And that was one of the first lines of the chorus that I like, I pray that you grow strong yet meek. And that is also just a realization that, you know, to me, one of the craziest things in the Beatitudes is it says, blessed are the poor in spirit. To me, that was just such a weird phrase to hear growing up. Like, what does it mean to be poor in spirit? To understand my need for God. And that is what I pray I can impart to my child is a, you know, one, to be meek, to, I mean, be the best you can possibly be, but also be kind, generous, patient, loving, empathetic, but also like have the humility to admit when you're wrong and to seek God. And like those things, I mean, you know, there's probably so much more, and that's what I'm trying to explore as I write this. How do I say, you know, 32 years of wisdom in a 3-minute song?
Yeah.
But you know, the other thing I wrote in the song was forgive me, like I pray that you can forgive me for the mistakes I will make, you know,
Yeah.
and having grace for people.
Mm.
So yeah, I think that's kind of a loaded question for me right now,
Yeah,
because
I know it's kind of a lot. So I feel like it's probably the first time you've spoken about it too. So it's, you know, yeah.
but it's good. It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good, good, good. And then just to kind of close out on, is there anything that you'd like to share with listeners just about like new music or anything, any encouragement, anything that you just want to share a final word on?
Yeah. Well, I'm definitely in the midst of working on a new album, and we have some really fun Spanish songs, some really great English songs as well. Hopefully they'll be bilingual. And you know, I'm very grateful for everybody who's been supporting me, and I pray that people take a step of faith to learn another language, to step out of their comfort zone, to make some friends that don't necessarily look like us, that don't talk like us. And so, you know, just I think that that's you know, will enrich your life and really grow you in some incredible ways. So thank you guys for listening to my music, and hope to be back on the show soon.